What makes someone choose a life of asking difficult questions? Is it curiosity, a sense of justice, or perhaps a deeply personal conviction that silence, especially in the face of wrongdoing, is just not an option? Our guest today is a journalist whose work has not only exposed critical national issues, but has also restored dignity to individuals and strengthened accountability systems in Ghana and beyond. She was an investigative journalist with the Fourth Estate, and she's a documentary storyteller, a multiple award winner, and the very first Ghanaian appointed to the jury of UNESCO Guillermo Cano Word Press Freedom Prize. After the break, we'll be joined by our honorable guest. Welcome back from the break. My name is Mamiukwa Utakwanyame, and it is my utmost pleasure to welcome to Impact Stories, Rebekah Awuah. Hello, Rebekah. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Great. Rebekah, take us to the very beginning. Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in a typical Ghanaian setting where community was everything. My childhood was very vibrant. I was that child that was very curious, asking the whys, and it's a gift, but yet it was a nuisance to some adults around. But more seriously, I was raised with a deep sense of discipline and understanding that your voice matters. So my parents always told us not to just observe our world, but take the responsibility by engaging in it. And least did I know that they were planting into me the first seeds of journalism, and here am I.
Great. Now, you talked about your childhood briefly, but could you give us a little bit more details? How was your childhood like? Did you grow up with any siblings? How was life growing up?
I grew up as the last of 5 children. And as the last of 5, you can imagine that I was very active and in almost...
I was expecting to say I was overly pampered.
Well, I don't know about that because I grew up in an average family. Yes, we didn't lack anything. My parents ensured that we get everything that we needed at the time, be it in education-wise, whatever you needed was provided. We didn't lack anything, but I wouldn't say I was pampered. We had to also learn the hard way, and in a community of people where we were brought up, we were taught also to respect each other's views and also to work well with people, especially in a team. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you studied at the School of Performing Arts at the University of Ghana. How does a performer become one of Ghana's most respected investigative journalists? Because this seems like a leap.
You see, it's not actually a leap. I would say it's a direct line. Because theater arts and performance teaches you the human condition. And at Legon, I was immersed in dance, I was immersed in music, I was immersed in theater arts. And theater arts taught me empathy. And that empathy is what we take to the field. Aside that, you also need to inhabit the reality of people so you can tell their stories authentically. And that is exactly what theater has taught you. So when I enter into that community, telling somebody's story or documenting the challenges of that farmer, that young girl who is at risk, I'm not an outsider doing that. I'm using that performing art skills of observation, of timing, of narrative structure to enter into their world. So I didn't leave the arts, which journalism is. I rather took the tools along with me from the stage to the real world. And you will attest to me that the real world is the biggest stage of all.
Indeed, but you chose investigative journalism instead of doing regular journalism. I'd like to know what exactly stirred that interest.
Well, I didn't go straight into investigative journalism. I started out at GBC, what many say GTV because that is the brand they know. But I started out at GBC in 2006 as an intern. And later in 2009, I also did my national service and regularized in 2010. That was way back about 17 years ago. Yeah, it doesn't look my age. It
Not
doesn't look
at all.
yes, but this year will be 20 years in journalism, broadcast journalism, yes. So when I started out as a normal reporter, reporting everything until I found a loophole. I found where that there was a void that I needed to fill. And looking at my background in the arts and in the performing arts, I had to fill that void of starting an entertainment segment in the news. In the radio newsroom, that is where I actually started. So I had to fill that void. It wasn't something easy that was acceptable at the time. But with time, they got to know that every audience tune into the news for a particular segment or a particular reason. There are people who tune in for the entire news bulletin, others tune in for sports, others tune in for business, but others were also looking for the lighter side of the news, which was missing in the radio newsroom at the time. So with the bosses then, Kumadra, Afel Monies of the time, yes, it was accepted and it was done. That was when I gradually nurtured my skill in journalism. And let me tell you this, it wasn't, in the newsroom at the time, they needed people coming from the Ghana Institute of Journalism. When you're coming from the University of Ghana, and more so with my area of study, you had to show working.
Yeah.
Your work had to speak for itself before they accepted you. So you could sit at the horseshoe. It was a horseshoe in the newsroom. You could sit forever without anybody giving you a task. But after I had shown working, then I was given the opportunity.
What makes you say you showed working?
Your work. Your work has to tell. Whatever you put in. You see, you come to the newsroom with passion. But it is not just the passion that brings about impact. It is about your writing skills. It is about how you put together your report. It is about how you learn from others and incorporate it into your work. Because somebody coming from GIJ then was considered a priority list than you coming from maybe the University of Ghana and even your area of study. So by showing work, and I mean your work had to speak for itself. And when the work started speaking for itself, they gave me other duties. From there, I remember in 2010, we're done with our national service. As normal, I had gone home, but later I was called for employment because my bosses thought I was hardworking and recommended me, and I was called to be employed. So I did the regular reporting till I carved a niche for myself in the arts, tourism, and creative arts industry. So in 2010, I was given a letter of transfer from radio to television. So that is what ended me up in the Ghana television newsroom, where I was one of the pioneers that started GBC 24. That was a 24-hour news channel. Then, where we were doing mind-blowing things.
What was that experience like?
It was humbling. And having that at the back of my mind that somebody saw something greater in us. Young minds were enthusiastic, learning from the Al Jazeera's, the BBC's, were camped in a room to benchmark for some days and what we needed to do and all of that. I thought it was really humbling that amongst the number of people, the lot, we were handpicked because of our hard work and certain traits that they have found to put us together. And that is what brought me. Yeah.
You know, let me veer you off your story a little bit, but do you think young journalists have that kind of burning passion that you had when you were starting out in your career?
I think I have seen in recent times, some very young, passionate journalists who are fearless, who refuse to be bribed, who are great fact checkers, ensuring that accuracy is non-negotiable. And I've seen others too, who come with a passion, but when the insults begin and it comes, they shudder. Yes. But mind you, the insults will come anyway. But what I ask is, did you enter into the field because of the fame, because of the cameras, because of what? If it is that, when the insults begin, then you go into hiding. But if you came to make an impact, then no matter what, you will stay. So I've seen very young people who are really passionate, and I've seen others who have said, journalism don't pay. So they rather turn to PR and yes, because now media is everywhere. We see social media, there are blogs everywhere, but critical journalism is beginning to be scarce, and that is my fear. But I've seen some good journalists out there, and when you look at the work that the Fourth Estate, the accountability project at the Media Foundation for West Africa that they are doing, it tells you that there is hope for this country.
Thank you very much for that. Now, back to your time at GBC. You did about 14 years with the GBC. I'd like to know what these years taught you about Ghana and even about yourself.
I would say, well, 14 years on record in the books, but 17 years, because I started out in 2006.
Yeah.
Remember, I told you about it. So 17 years continuous as a broadcast journalist without any break. And GBC was my university after Legon. 17 years is quite a long time at one place, but it was foundational. It gave me a best eye view of how our country, Ghana, looks like. As I initially indicated, I started out as a usual reporter, and I carved a niche for myself in the arts, in the tourism, in the creative arts side. And that made me appreciate Ghana, love my country the more. Because traveling around the country and seeing sides of this country that has been left bare, potential that can rake in money for our country, but nothing is happening. It made me love my country more and appreciate the country better. Again, GBC or GTV also made me understand that journalism is a marathon and not a sprint. And that gave me that range and the needed time.
What do you mean journalism is a marathon and not a sprint?
You see, when you are going on a sprint, it's a one-time thing. But a marathon is continuous, right? So you begin from a place and gradually you graduate into where you want to be. So that is the kind of nurturing I got from GBC. Yes, and it gave me the range, the needed range I needed to zoom into the full-time investigative work that I do now. So it's been quite an awesome experience, yes, at GBC, and giving me that perspective.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Now, you eventually moved to the Fourth Estate, which you've actually mentioned earlier, and the Media Foundation for West Africa. What motivated that shift from mainstream media to investigative and public interest journalism?
What motivated me?
There has to be something.
You see, I realized that asking the nice questions wasn't enough. At a point in your career, you ask yourself, do I want to continue reporting the news, breaking the news, moderating shows, moderating programs, paneling people and having discussions, or I want to change the trajectory of my nation or my country? And I chose the latter. I wanted to change the trajectory of my country, and that was what led me to be a part of the Fourth Estate's accountability project. And I must tell you, it has been worth the while. And You see, when you get to the commercial newsrooms, because of the pressure for headlines, the kind of expensive and time-consuming work that is done at the Fourth Estate, the commercial newsrooms wouldn't have time for it because they are looking at the next headline, they are looking at the next sensational story that will bring in the next profit and all of that. But the Fourth Estate takes time, invest into every project, and it is time consuming. Looking at that document, following that story, taking months, taking sometimes a year and a half just to bring out one story. I'm not sure the commercial newsrooms have time for it. So that is what actually led me into accountability journalism. Yeah, to make a difference, make an impact. Yes.
Great. Now, during or throughout your time with the Fourth Estate, are there any roles or projects that you worked on that you believe have shaped you the most?
Many. But I think one or two of them that comes to mind readily will be a story that was on a woman who had suffered vesicovaginal fistula. That is a tear after childbirth at the private part, and as a result, she couldn't contain her feces and her urine. Once you're with her, everything comes out like that. And we had to spend months and, yes, to investigate it, how it happened, and all of those. And subsequently, she had been left on her own because she's a poor, vulnerable woman who had nobody to speak with. Very poor, a beef seller in a market in a shanty neighborhood somewhere in Ashaman, who had nobody to speak for her. But we had to follow the story, and we ensured that with the intervention from, after the story aired, then the National Committee on Fistula was contacted. We contacted them and presented the evidences to them. And knowing what we do, they had to step in quickly and fix her situation. And today she's a very bubbly woman, smiling, going about her job, her business, and that, for us, is the impact we seek. Not just the awards, but when that woman can turn and say, thank you for your story, brought some light into my life.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, this is what I call impact journalism, you know, ensuring that the kind of stories that we work on actually benefits the people we are telling the stories to. So kudos to you and your team on that.
Thank you so much.
Now, I am so interested in investigative journalism. Did you ever consider the risk involved before you even ventured into that spheres of journalism?
Yes and no. Yes, because already my face was out there and I had to weigh the pros and cons of what I was going in for and where I was going into. So with the training that I had from GBC, accurate, balanced, fact-checked reports and all of those, it was an added advantage. And when you transition, it is the same principles that are used. Only that with investigative reporting and journalism, sometimes it takes longer periods because sometimes you are following the money, you are asking where is the money going, why is this policy failing, why is that person dying at that hospital, and you need some documents to show. You need to point fingers to some people who are ensuring that these things are not working accurately. So you need documents, you need whistleblowers who will actually give you evidences to be able to follow the trail. So I weigh the pros and cons, and knowing the beats that I am into women affairs, I'm into art, but I had to lay the arts and tourism, even though there are some shady deals in there. For a while, I held on to that for a while and focused on governance issues, political issues, women's issues, and also we deal with beats. And with those ones, you still need to apply the principles and the rules in journalism. And once everything is accurate, you present the facts to the people and they are willing to give you their side of the story. You tell them we are airing the story today. If you have any questions about it, raise it before it goes. But if you don't have any questions about it, we present the evidences to you, we present it to our lawyers, and then, of course, it's aired. When any backlash comes, we ensure that we do detailed work so that you won't find us wanting, especially at the fourth estate. It is very, very critical. Yes.
Great. Rebekah, do you have a mentor? Who mentored you, and how important is mentorship in this field?
You know, okay, one thing I would say is that mentorship is the oxygen of journalism. Without it, you cannot survive in the space. I know people will argue and people will debate it, but I say it again. Mentorship is the oxygen of journalism, without which you cannot survive. You see, I stood on giant shoulders to be able to get to where I am today. When I was starting out, people didn't know what I had to offer. So I had to be given the opportunity to show the world what I had to offer. Mentorship didn't come to me directly, but after showing my work to the world, then indirectly, the people in the field who had worked for long started mentoring me indirectly. And I needed it, so I embraced it. And it worked well for me. And I think everybody should have a mentor in the field of journalism. It will work for you. They have gone through that path. They can tell you when you step here, it will help you. When you step here, you'll be going into a ditch. So walk with caution, act with caution, cover your emotions. Sometimes if you need to cry, cry, wail, and also mentorship really, really helped me. Mentorship also came to me in unusual places. When I had gone to, I was a nominee for the 2013 CNN African Journalist Awards in 2013, and I had met colleagues from other places, other institutions, other media houses, and it helped me in a way by giving me and opening my eyes to global standards. So it elevated my work after the CNN Awards in 2013. It elevated how I approached stories. The other mentorship that I received was through the Mandela Washington Fellowship leadership program that was started by the Obama Foundation. Is it Obama? No, the President Obama, years back by the US Department of State. It also shaped my leadership skills. And even out of that, I was able to start the Rebekah Awuah Foundation, where we nurture girls, we nurture orphans, to know that, look, mentorship is good. Talent is universal, but opportunity is not. So you need people who will carry you along and pull you up to offer you that opportunity. And once that opportunity is offered to you, you have to prove yourself worthy of it. So mentorship has really shaped my career. And I encourage everybody to get one.
Great, but are there any names you can mention?
You see, that is what I want to avoid. You know, the people are...
But I think if your mentors are watching you out there, they would be proud to hear you mention their names.
I know. There are some names that I truly have to appreciate.
Okay.
From my days in the radio newsroom, I would appreciate the tutorship of Raybon Bule, Boss Kumadra, Roland Athel Money, Titus Taikiche, and a number of our colleagues and seniors also helped me. Phyllis Kofi, Abigail Labis, and they were such a true inspiration. Jennifer Labis of the time, and all of those. Transitioning to TV, even in radio, I had radio mentors. Felicia, Auntie Felicia, I don't remember the full name. I had people, because at a point in time, I was a producer for a music show. I also did disc jockeying. I was a DJ, held lunch on Unique. So I had other mentors in Unique FM, Radio Ghana, a lot of them. Then I transitioned to TV. TV mentors, a lot. Gifty aunties, the Akushika Akweis, the Barbara Gazes, the FS I've forgotten of blessed memory. A lot. And oh, before I forget, with the mentors, Neodati Lamte, Jocelyn Anu will call you first thing when your pronunciation is wrong on air. When you hear the phone ringing, then it means you mispronounce the word. I'm grateful for that mentoring. And one woman I'll never forget, Mercy Soa. She was a great inspiration. And I had other colleagues who were also a great inspiration to me.
Right.
I know there are people who have really mentored me, and I appreciate it. If I'm unable to mention your name, please forgive me, but know that I have carried those lessons with me along this trajectory, and I appreciate your input into my life.
Thank you, Rebekah. You know, when you were talking, I almost missed the parts where you said you've been a DJ. I would come to that. But let's take a quick break, and once we are back, we'll bring you more on the story of Rebekah Awuah. You all come back from the break, and this is still Impact Stories with Rebekah Awuah. Now, Rebekah, you often have a popular saying that you usually use in most of your work. You often say, "My name is Rebekah Awuah, and I bring your thoughts alive." What is the philosophy behind this line?
My name is Rebekah Awuah, and I bring your thoughts alive. Look, it is a covenant to my audience. It is a line that is a call to my being. I created or I adopted that slogan when I started and initiated and created a program called the Reporters Roundtable in 2017. That was 7 years after going into the TV newsroom, and I realized that reporters, journalists didn't have opinions when writing their stories, but what can give them the platform to add their opinions? That was a roundtable where they can be opinionated about national issues, international issues, and their own stories when necessary. So once I begin and I do my introduction, the next will come. My name is Rebekah Awuah, and I bring your thoughts alive. It is a covenant to my audience. You know, once I sit behind the camera, it is not about my ego. It is not about my own story any longer. I interpret and translate the hopes, the aspirations, the concerns, the problems of my audiences to the world. And for me, I have always said that if I should even interview the president or that woman in the village, that farmer, that high-profile personality, I should bring their thoughts alive with passion and integrity. So for me, it is about service. It is like saying that once you are with me, you can trust me that your voice will be heard.
This is powerful. Thank you very much. Now, let's talk about a specific project. Your documentary, Voices of Change, focused on gender disparities in politics. And I see that you featured some female politicians such as Ablajefa Gomashi, you featured Patricia Piejei, you featured Dela Soa and many others in your work. Amazing piece, by the way.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Now, what was the human story behind that investigation that stuck with you?
You know, when you see or hear about the number 40 out of 275 MPs, they are statistics, right?
Yeah.
They are statistics. To the ordinary, to anybody, it is just figures. It is just statistics. But in filming this documentary, we came into contact with professionals, community leaders, women with great potential, brilliant minds who are capable of leading and others who are leading in their own rights. We also saw the machinery that works against them. The high filing fees, the name calling, the ridicule on the campaign trails and platforms, the mindset that the place of the woman is not in parliament. You see, when filming, there was one woman that came to me and said, Rebekah, you know what? It is not the elections I fear, but the loneliness to be the only woman in the room.
Wow.
And that stayed with me. And it spoke volumes about the issue we are confronted with. So, Voices of Change was a documentary that presented to Ghana what we are faced with and the exclusion of women from decision-making in governance and politics, what it is doing to our country. We are not fighting about the numbers in parliament, in governance, in politics, in decision-making. We are fighting about improving our democracy. And if we are fighting about the quality of our democracy, excluding women is excluding half of solving our problems as a nation. So that is what Voices of Change sought to target. And what stayed with me was that one woman who said that, look, for me to be alone in that room, that was my fear. Not that I am afraid of the elections.
What did you hope to achieve with that documentary?
We wanted to deepen the democratic gains of our country, Ghana, because Ghana for a very long time has been touted as the beacon of democracy in the continent of Africa, not just Africa, but in the sub-region. So will we continue to tout ourselves as a beacon of democracy, where we were the first to assent to laws that wanted to bring more women on board so that they could share in the decision-making process of our governance, but yet we are 30 years beyond that law that we assented to, yet we have not been able to reach there. Get to Rwanda. Get to our neighbors. Just next door. A war-torn country that brought itself together. The mobilization was by women. So they saw the need to make quotas for women. But in our country, no. You still have to go through the hard process. And yet, women are not giving their thinking is that, no, this is not your place. So we wanted to say that, look, it is high time we bring women into decision-making and into the decision table, because we have varied opinions. How we see things are different. So it is not about competition, but it's about complementing each other for a national development agenda.
Thank you very much, Rebekah. Now, in your view, what is the difference between reporting facts and reporting the truth? And how do you even navigate that in your line of work?
I didn't see this one coming. But what is a journalist but a performer of the truth? And reporting the facts, reporting the truth, there's a thin line. You can report the facts and it will end up being the truth. Sometimes the facts can also be skewed to look like the truth, but actually it is not the truth. That is why it is important to fact check every line that you write, every figure that you are using. You have to cross-check and cross-check again, because somebody will say truth is subjective based on how you have skewed it to look like. But for investigative work, you ensure that you present what you have to your audiences so that they take up the challenge and take up the change and provide that action that is needed for that change that is required. So truth, fact-based journalism, they are hallmarks of every journalism or every journalist. But how you tell it determines whether you are skewing it because of a narrative or because of your own parochial interest. But present it balanced, accurate. I have said it here, that accuracy is non-negotiable. Balance, accurate, fact-checked, and you are good to go.
Great. Now, some say investigative journalism is about uncovering truth, and others also say it's about repairing broken system. Which of these resonates more with your purpose?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Both. Both. Because if you don't uncover the truth, you are unable to repair the cracks and the ills in society. You see, it's like you having porridge that has been covered with rubber or covered, but beneath that porridge, there is cakes of soap beneath that porridge. How do you do that? How do you get to see that what is beneath the porridge can affect the lives of the people or the health of the people? By scooping. So you need to scoop beneath to know what is under that porridge. And that is the work of the investigative journalist. You scoop deep, a deep dive. And once that thing is uncovered, oh, this is what is there, then of course, after the causes, then the effects and the solutions, it creates impact. So both, I align with both.
But what do you do when the truth at the same time sort of causes some national issues, could be in terms of security or what have you? How do you draw that line? So you have a very powerful story out there that you should be able to tell, but at the same time, there are some perhaps ethical dilemmas that you need to work along. How do you handle some of these things?
Are you talking about national security issues
National
or
security.
ethical?
Okay, so let's do national security issues, because I know I would lose with the ethical.
When it bothers on national security, you see, our kind of work is such that we are not here to name, shame, ridicule, get in prison, get those monies back, and all of that. It's also about human interests. You understand? But when those issues will cost our nation fortunes of money, will make the nation lose at the end, no matter who you are, we'll still air that story. We'll come after you. Because at the end of the day, ours is not to touch the symptoms of national problems. That is what we've been running away from all this while. That is why we left mainstream journalism to come into the investigative space, not to be touching the symptoms, but the causes, the effect, the solutions. So if the nation is going to lose, then you, that one individual who will bring the nation down, you will rather go down than the nation going down. But if it borders on national security, then of course we present the issue and we see the ethical dilemmas where it will cause problem, then we will rather not do the story at all. I'll give you a typical example. When the Boko issue started, and when we went into elections, you remember there were some infractions and there were some problems up north. And we wanted to do a story in connection to, the story was good, but looking at the national security issue and the passions that it will inflame, we decided no, these Boko issues, it is ingrained in tradition, culture, and all of those. We would rather stay off that issue so that we don't inflame passions. So we'll have our country intact than going to report, even though the thing is factual, going to report it so that one faction may think we are against them. So we had to let it lie. So if it will bring our country into jeopardy, no. And we inflame passions, no. We'll rather not tell the story.
Okay.
Yes, but we want a story that will unite our country and not to break up our country apart.
Okay. And what compels you to chase stories that others may not want to tell?
Impact. Change in that single individual. You see, I remember a story I worked on chemicals affecting, the overuse of chemicals affecting our soil and also our yields, and adopting agroecological means of getting more yields, yet sustaining our climate and our environment. And I remember I had entered into a community after the story had aired. One day there was this farmer who said, you know, after that story was aired, look, I had to go back to my organic ways of farming, and now my soil is healthier. That is it.
Yeah.
Just one person. And I remember it was not just a story that was aired. There was a forum that was held after the story was aired. And it also made policy makers started to ask questions about regulation and all of that. And on radio, farmers started to call in and were asking, is this the same kind of farming we're doing, peasant farming we're doing in the old, that it has resurfaced? We said it's the same thing. But you see, it has impacted somebody's life, getting quality food, sustaining our environment.
You know, Rebekah, how does that make you feel, knowing that a story you worked on has sparked conversations, is making impact out there? How does that make you feel?
Humbled. And I put my hand to my chest to that. Humbled. Humbled. And I say it again. Because, you see, there are many stories and there are many storytellers. But the story that changes life is the story we're telling and telling and telling again.
Thank you very much. Now, so you are also the first Ghanaian journalist to be appointed to the jury of the UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize. That's a huge deal. What does this mean to you and for Ghana?
I received this news as a great responsibility, not with pride. I remember when the news came in 2024, I was in a training at the Hephzibah Christian Center in Pediase, and I remember kneeling down when the call came through. I just lifted up my hands and just said, thank you, Jesus, because I didn't know what I had done to merit that. So it was a great sense of responsibility for me and not pride. Guillermo Cano is a Colombian journalist who was assassinated for standing up to drug cartels. He paid a huge price to press freedom. And me being on that panel as one of the jury, I wear that hat, and I'm also a guardian of that legacy. And so it is no mean feat, as you have said, but I don't wear it as a personal crown. I wear it as a megaphone for the many journalists who are working in the shadows to bring democracy alive and to ensure that we have free press and we can have freedom of expression wherever they are working. And for Ghana, it also tells and it signals that Ghana is recognized as a beacon of press freedom in the sub-region. And again, for Ghana, it gives me the opportunity that once I am on that panel and platform, African narratives and African struggles cannot be sidelined, but it has to be brought to the forefront. It also gives me that opportunity that if that journalist is threatened at the line of duty, even in the sub-region, it gives me that platform to advocate for that kind of journalist.
Great, thank you very much. And since joining this jury, has your worldview shifted, especially relating to the risks journalists face globally?
It has. It has. Especially reviewing, you see, it is a prize for press freedom the world over, where people bring in their works to be awarded. So you sit on that panel with a global view. And it has shifted my perspective. And it has also opened my eyes to the kind of threats and the struggles people go through in their various countries just to report one story. It is not easy. I can't share everything, but it has really been an eye-opener and a great learning curve for me. Yes, and people are really going through a lot. Just as we are here, we can talk freely. Others don't have that opportunity. Their country's laws don't give them that chance to be able to do that.
Now, if you knew all the things you know now as of the time you were starting off your career, would you still have chosen investigative journalism?
Over and over again. Over and over again. You know, it is a powerful platform. You see, in as much as it presents you with, as people will say, threats, your family will be threatened and all. When you see, mention the names like the Manase Azuri Awinis, the Anas Aremeyao Anas, who are the forerunners of this in our country and global figures and all of those. They have been threatened. But one thing keeps them moving. One thing keeps them moving. It is upholding the truth. So, if you are one person in this area, your integrity is your currency. It is that kind of thing that money cannot buy. You have to hold it close to your chest. And if you don't have integrity in this profession, you will not go far. So you have to hold integrity as an anchor everywhere you go. So I'll choose it over and over and over again because you affect lives in ways unimagined.
Indeed, your integrity is your currency. Thank you for that. Now, Rebekah, looking at the media landscape here in Ghana and even in Africa, what worries you and what gives you hope?
What worries me? I am worried, especially about misinformation and disinformation and the economic sustainability of quality journalism. I have said that media is everywhere, social media, blogs, whatever, but quality journalism is now becoming scarce.
Yeah.
So I'm worried about that. And I'm also worried about the threats, smear campaigns that journalists face, especially online bullying for female journalists. It is a cause for concern because it brings about self-censorship. People become so much aware of their environment that they would not want to speak out any longer. Yeah. So it worries me the most. But I am hopeful. And what gives me hope? I'm hopeful about the next generation of journalists. I've seen fearless journalists, fact-checkers, data-driven, AI-driven, who will not kowtow to bending the rules and who will not be bribed. And I've seen that kind of journalism really pays. And I've seen it firsthand, that at the Media Foundation for West Africa, the Accountability Journalism Project that the Fourth Estate is doing, is journalism that can survive. And it is really paying off. And I'm hopeful. And that is the kind of journalism that can really shift a nation. And we have to look at that area very critically.
Great. And over the years, is there a story that you wish you could tell but you haven't been able to tell?
There are many stories I wish to tell.
What is that one story?
When I give it out, it's the lead I'm giving out. You see, journalists think alike.
Yeah.
Yes, we think alike. And there are stories I'm working on, I hope to work on, that will be leads. But they are human interest stories. Stories that affect the ordinary Ghanaian, that would make you cry, will make you say the why are you into this? Why is this happening? And you'll be asking all the questions, but also brings about solution. So there are many stories that I wish to tell.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. And if you could sit with your younger self at the start of your career, what truth would you tell her? Perhaps one that she wouldn't believe at the time. Your younger self.
Patience. Patience presents sometimes with great challenges. You are presented with challenges. On holy hours, you have to be on the field, neglecting family, sometimes not even taking care of your own health. Patience is one. If you are not patient enough, you might leave the scene where the applause is loudest the most.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll tell my younger self is to be mindful of your health and take vacations when you need it. Don't get yourself swarmed in the work so much so that you forget about your health. It will cost you in your years. And these are real testimonies from my life experiences that I will tell my younger self, that take a breather when needed the most. And it will help.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Now, before I get to your last words, I'd like to know who Rebekah Awuah is when she's not working.
Rebekah Awuah. Rebekah Awuah is would I say, somebody who is very private, and when not working, would want to reflect on life's journey, stick to scriptures where she draws a lot of strength, and work on her foundation, the Rebekah Awuah Foundation, and see who next needs help so that we'll mobilize to help that individual.
Indeed, Rebekah is very private. You managed to sum everything up, but still be private. Yeah, thank you very much. But finally, Rebekah, when you look back at your journey from performing arts student at Legon to UNESCO, what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
My legacy should be that person that opened the door. I want to be remembered as someone who used her pen and her camera not to build bridges or build walls and shut the doors for others to enter. I want to be that individual who should be remembered for holding the hands of others to go through the door and be able to say, because Rebekah stood, I was able to sit at the table. Because I have personally experienced how when your voice is ignored or shunned, how it feels like. It is dehumanizing. And I don't want to be somebody who would want to be remembered for shutting up people's voices, but I want to be somebody who gave voice to the voiceless. Because I have wept, I have cried when my voice is not heard and my voice is ignored, and I don't want anybody to go through that. For Ghana, I want to be remembered as the lady or Rebekah that left a journalism trait that was fearless but yet fair. A journalism that is not just about Rebekah breaking the news, but uniting our nation, and one who helped others find their purpose in life.
Thank you so much, Rebekah. You have been such an inspiration. And thank you very much for all you do for our beloved country, Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us on Impact Stories. And this story by Rebekah Awuah has been an inspiration to you. Now, I have 3 takeaways from today's interview. One is that integrity is your currency. Another is that patience pays. And again, be mindful of your health. Take vacation when you need it. Thank you very much. My name is Mamiu Kwanyame. This is Impact Stories. Catch you on the next episode.